You're back. Great. The second commandment is thou shalt set a line. Last time we talked about converging, which is something you do when you're working from a distance. Well, when you're setting a line, that's something you do when you're running parallel to your dog. Now, when I say setting a line, I'm talking about as your dog approaches a jump, you want to shape its path so that it takes the jump at an angle, and that angle would be toward the next correct jump. For example, here's the chart. You got your 3, straight ahead is an off course, and then to the left is the 4, the next correct jump. Now, if your dog takes that number 3 straight on, there's a good chance it's going to take the off course. But if you shape your dog and get it so it's taking that jump at an angle toward the number 4, that's your most efficient path. Now, in both cases, when a dog takes a jump, they have a little extra oomph, a little extra momentum from jumping and landing. And if the dog lands straight ahead, you may be able to get them off that jump, but you're going to have to work at it because they're headed that way. You're going to have to yell and scream and do all your motions and stuff. And they're going to have to stop, they're going to have to back up, and then go to the correct place. That takes, time? Like a second or two. On the other hand, if you turn them before the jump, your job is almost over because they land from that jump at the angle, they have the momentum, and you may have to just cue a tiny little bit, maybe a little arm or a little motion in that direction for a second, and their commitment's going to be a little earlier to that jump because they're well on their way. And that allows you to maybe move away from the dog a little earlier so you can get ahead. Something we all want to do, get ahead of our dogs. The concept of setting a line is really very simple, and you've all done it probably many times, particularly in this kind of sequence where you have the jump leading to the tunnel equidistant from either side. You know you have to do something before the jump takes place. The trick with setting a line is finding ways to do it. And so the main focus of this video is going to be the various ways to shape your dog's path to get it to take a line to your advantage. And along the way, you might get an idea of different situations where you can use setting a line to your advantage. Let's start our examples with the universal example, which is you. What I mean by that is whatever you can come up with, because all you're really doing is trying to cross the jump at an angle that leads to the next correct jump. So whatever you can come up with. So you just go along and you just turn when you need to. Now the perfect time to turn would be, you're not going to pull them off the jump, and on the other hand, you're giving them time to react to what you're doing. Some dogs react very quickly, some take a little longer, but you want to cross that at any kind of angle you want. Now I'm going to give you all sorts of little intricacies, little tricks that I've learned and seen other people do, but that's all you're really trying to do. There are 2 basic sides you're going to be on. Now, we talk about like a left turn right here. We're going to call this the inside of a turning circle. And when you're on the other side over there, you're on the outside of this particular turning circle. So we're going to go on now to the inside the turning circle, and let's get started. Okay, here's an example. I call it a go around or a kind of a push-pull kind of thing. And you can also call it impinging on the dog's path. Now I think a chart will show it better. I'll do it out here, but I don't have a lot of room out here. So you got to jump here, jump here. You want the dog to go over here. As your dog is taking this jump, you kind of impinge on their path, kind of push them out a little bit. You're kind of pushing them out, and you pull them in like this. It's not so dramatic. You're shaping their path by making them take this jump here to come out, and then you're bringing them back in like this. And here's the chart for that. Okay, how about you start that a little before the first jump, and you get them to angle to take the first jump, and then you bring them back in. You angle them and then pull them back in. Depending on your situation, you you can start your turn a little earlier by going before that first jump. Okay, so that's kind of like a go around, and you're kind of pushing them out and pulling them back in. Now let me give you a similar situation when a table is involved. Here we go. This is a fairly common sequence. After a table, you got the table, then a jump to the tunnel, and the jump is where if you take it straight on, it's going to go to the wrong end of the tunnel. So you need to shape your dog's path to come over and get the left end of the tunnel. Now, I was at a trial a couple months ago, and I saw two ladies do this back to back. I'd never seen it before, and I thought it was pretty cool. So it's shaping a line. So Poochie, come right here. You get right by the table. You bring your dog around. Let's go. Eee! Oops. There we go. So pretty cool. Just kind of bring them around you. Now you can also do this if you have a little lead out, maybe 3, 6, 8 feet, to have a bigger angle to turn. So let me make it a little harder. I'll bring it over like about this, just for demonstration. Okay, so we want to go all the way over there. So that's a pretty big turn. So you want to bring them out more. So Poochie, have a seat. Okay, good. Now I'm gonna be about out here. Now remember, when you want your dog to come to your right side, you open your side to the right. They'll be more likely to go in front of you rather than behind you. Okay, let's go, let's go. Yee! So that's setting a line off the table with the push-pull. The last examples we talked about basically when you're on the inside of a turning circle. You know, your v-sette, the dog is on the outside of the turn, and all the go-arounds on the outside of the turn. Well, what if you're on the other side of the dog? You have to find a way to do it then. There are lots of little different ways you can do it. Let's just go through a couple. You got the tire, the jump, and the tunnel. So one simple way is, if you're running along, before they go to the jump, you just start turning the angle you want the side you want them to go to. Now, when you're on the outside of the circle, you need a little more distance. When you're on the inside of the circle, like in the v-sette, being close to your dog has more influence on them. You might want to be closer to your dog, but on the outside, you want to be further out, because I've said here in at least 2 or 3 times in this whole series, I talk about leaving room to converge, leaving room to show the motion you need to influence your dog. So in this case, dog is coming along here. You want to be out maybe like 5, 8 feet. So even if they're a little ahead of you, before you get to the jump, before they get to the jump, you're turning your shoulders and you're moving the direction you want them to go. You got to be out to do that. Other ways to pull them out like that, some people have like a fanny patty kind of thing. You know, they pat their fanny, the dog comes to them, turn your shoulders. I always say turn your shoulders first. You can turn your shoulders faster than you can turn, and shoulders have a lot of influence on the direction your dog goes. So turn your shoulders and then run toward the direction you want to go before the jump. Now I have an example of sidestepping to set a line. Now, I'm going to do it on the chart inside off camera because it's too complicated a sequence for me to do out here with the limited space that I have. But let me just show you some of the movements and kind of why you do it. So you got a situation here where the dog is coming from over here and you want to get the dog over there. Now, ideally, if you could happen to be on the landing side of this jump, that'd be the best, because that is contact between the dog over a jump. That's a very strong cue. But sometimes they can't get here. So let's say you're kind of stuck over here, but you want to set your line over there. If you take this jump going this way, you're too much cueing the tunnel over here. So you really want to be going in this direction, setting your line to the correct end. So your dog is coming this way, you can kind of back up and sidestep, and then that allows you to run past this jump at the correct line. So that's kind of like a sidestep. Now, sometimes I add a little more shoulder to that kind of thing, and I call it a drift. What I do is I kind of drift over this way and then go just to kind of move over, and then have a lot of them to see, big shoulder turn to show that I'm moving in that direction. Okay, let's go inside and we'll give you a more comprehensive explanation. This is the chart from what we just did outside, and the point I'm trying to make is this, that if the handler in the current position in the chart passes the 12 from that position, the handler will be actually cueing mostly the off-course end of the tunnel, like this. But if the handler can move out 5 or 8 feet or whatever, and then pass the 12 at the angle toward the 13, he's setting a line to cue the dog to take the 13 end of the tunnel. So you can sidestep or run out that way to make your turn to get the better angle to cue the number 13 over the 12. Now, you might say, well, I'd just do a rear right there. You know, rear 12 to get the dog into 13, and that's a good question. But let me just point out this. In the position on the chart right here, some handlers might be too far ahead of the dog to do a rear, because the dog has to be ahead of you to do a rear. And if the handler would slow down or stop too much, it might stop the dog from taking the 12. So I have a concept I call pace, where sometimes you don't really want to be ahead of your dog because of what you want to do, like in this case, a rear. Now the other issue about doing a rear right here is that the rear puts the handler on the other side of the dog, on the 13 end of the tunnel, and maybe the handler doesn't want to be over there. Maybe the handler would rather be on the off-course side of the tunnel because that's where like the next obstacle is. So, you know, doing this particular technique, you know, setting a line and not doing a rear, is often just a matter of where do you want to be at the end of the sequence. So let's go into another example. This is a similar situation. You see where the handler is? If the handler passes the 4 from its current position without moving out, the handler is cueing, well, something in between the 5 and the 7, but not clearly the 7, which would be better if you'd be ankling more toward the 5. So the trick there, again, would be to move out as the dog is coming toward him, and then before the dog gets to the 4, be moving the direction of the 5, setting a line to number 5 by sidestepping and moving out beyond the 4 so you can set that line toward the 5. And once again, the question is, why don't you just do a rear or get in the inside of that circle, the 3, 4, 5 circle? And the answer is, maybe that's not where you want to be, because in this case, after the 5, there's a little circle thing, and you might want to be in the middle of the 5, 6, and the 7. So you want to be on that side of the dog while they're taking the 4 and the 5. And setting a line by moving out is the way to do it here. What we've been talking about so far is moving out maybe 5 or 8 feet to set up a line by moving to the side or sidestepping. And this is similar, but it's a lot more extreme because you're moving to the side to get in a position to set up a line, but you're having to run like hell to do it. So you got your 5 weaves to the 6 into the 7, and then I wanted to set the line between the 8 and the 9 because that would put me on the inside of the turning circle from 8, 9, 10, and 11. And there was something intricate after 11. I really wanted to be over there as best I could. So this is what I had to do, and a lot of other people did it too, is the dog takes the 6, and when you're sure to go in the 7, then you run like hell to the other end of the 8, and you have to run far enough to be in a position to set up that line, which is maybe like 5 or 6 feet past the 8. So you have to run all the way out here, and as the dog is coming out the tunnel, it'd be nice if it would be seeing you move in the direction of the line toward the number 9. So that's just another example of moving to the side to set up a line. So let's go to a pull-push kind of thing, or like a front cross kind of way to set a line after a table going into a tunnel. This is if you want to be the other side of the dog. Now for this one, you kind of need somewhat of a lead out, however you can go, 4 feet, 10 feet, whatever you can get off of a table. Some people have that, some people don't. You ready? Let's go. Get in the box. Okay, so you get in there, you kind of go to the side, go where you need to be, you set up a front cross, push you come. Eee! All right, so that's a kind of a front cross kind of thing, or kind of a pull push off the table. You ever see these two charts? This one and this one? Now what this shows is that the angle you take the rear cross, like whether you start earlier or later, and whether your angle where you're turning is steep or not as steep, is going to determine the direction the dog is going to take. So rear crosses are generally setting a line. Perhaps the most extreme version of setting a line would have to be the v-sette. Now, many of you know what this is, but I may add a little bit to it. Okay, the v-sette is for a situation like this, the jump to the tunnel situation. You got your jump here, your dog is coming from this direction over here, the close direction, if you can't tell. You want to make a hard left turn to go to this end of the tunnel. So you have to have them take the jump in the direction of the correct end of the tunnel. So here's the basic technique. The basic techniques, I'll show you right here just so you see it better. Okay, so right before the jump, you plant your foot, you turn your shoulders, and then you move in the direction you want the dog to go. 3 things. I'll do it by the jump now. You go here, plant your foot, turn your shoulders, and then go in the direction you want and point, okay? That's your v-sette. What's happening there? Well, for one thing, you're either stopping or noticeably slowing down, and you can call that a decel. Whenever you stop like that or slow down like that, you're calling attention to yourself, and the dog is saying, hey, something's going on here, I better pay attention. When they see what you're doing, they turn the direction the handler is in. That's basic decel, that's a kind of advanced technique, but that's what's happening right here. So you can do that wherever you want. You can do it out here a ways, wherever you think it'll work for you. Make your turn and go this direction. Really very simple. You can go practice it. Now, I know people that don't have to do all that. They can just kind of walk up to the jump and just kind of casually turn and say tunnel. Very minimal cueing. If the dog is really in tune to them, and that might be enough. That's, like v-sette light. That worked for some people. Now, other people need to do it like the way I said before. Kind of put your foot down here and do a big shoulder turn, make it a little more dramatic and point to all that. That's like a little more, like a medium one. But you know who I am, I'm the cue more guy. I say cue big, and that comes from having these scruffy terriers who are stubborn and need to really be told what's going on. So here's my way of doing a v-sette. You can call it marks, foot plant, big shoulder turn thing. What I do is, I'll go up, I'll plant my foot big, and I'll lift up my arm right here, like up to my shoulder, and that's accentuating the shoulder turn. Give them something to see. I'm going here, I'm beside my phone, I'm going like, roar, and go. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, you know, you have to bring your cueing level up to what your dog needs. And my whole kind of approach is, if what you're doing is fine, but if it's not working, your dog is not reading it, you really want them to pay attention, just cue more, give them more to see, be louder, be bigger, be more dramatic. So that's what the v-sette is, and that's the various levels of the v-sette. Now, one more variation of the v-sette I'll show you right now, and this would apply to our very first example. That would be, it doesn't have to be a full 90-degree turn. And it's like, what I'm talking about now is not just a v-sette, but like a v-sette move or a v-sette type move, because it doesn't need to be a full 90-degree turn. It can be a 45-degree turn. I like that because of the drama of it and because it's big and the dog is definitely going to see it if you need that. And I use that all the time. Remember the big circle example from the first commandment, where I say you go toward a jump and then you turn. You converge the first jump, then you turn and converge the next jump, and so on. Well, the turn I'm making is basically that same kind of move. I'm planting my foot and I'm doing a shoulder turn like this. In that case, it may only be like a, you know, a very small angle turn, like 20 or 30 degrees. But you're still showing the dog in a big way that they have to make a turn there, no matter how big or small it is. So, and then one more example. Let's say you're in a situation where you want to make a 90-degree turn at your jump. This is just one way to do it. Going along and you do a big old turn like this. Planting your foot. I call it a v-sette type move because that's kind of where I learned it the first time. But you can use it in a variety of situations, in a variety of angles. So that's your v-sette type move. Well, that's it for setting a line. There are lots of advantages to it. First, it is precise. It helps you lead your dog exactly where you want it to go. It helps you avoid off courses. It helps you get ahead sometimes. And sometimes it helps you get on the other side of the dog. What I like about it most is that it gives you a purpose in what you're doing as you run through a course, not just meandering through. It gives you something to look for, something to work for. And every time you can set a line, it's always better because it's sending your dog exactly where you want it to. So with that, we're going to go to the third and fourth commandment, which kind of cover this again, but because I'm covering it more than once, it's because it's that important. So don't forget to cue more. Please, you see this over here? See my dog over here digging up the yard? That's a mini poodle. I've had 3 terriers before this, and it's the poodle that tears up the yard.